Hello, my name's Beth Moran and I'm Programme Lead on the BA Honours in Social Work here at the University of Plymouth, and that's what I'm here to talk with you today. So I'm going to share the screen so you can see this PowerPoint, which is what I usually share during our open days, so I hope that it'll be of help to you. So the qualification then is a 3-year undergraduate degree programme, and once you've gone through that, you'll then be able to apply to register with Social Work England, so that they're our regulatory body, and you will become then a qualified social worker. So it's a professional programme with the expectations that go alongside that, that you'll have a real commitment to the programme because it's very much full-time. So as well as coming along to the university, and that initially starts as 3 days, then goes down to 2 and to 1, you'll also have individual study and practice placements that run alongside that. Obviously, depending on how things look over the coming months, a lot of what we'll be doing will be online, but this is what I'm talking to you today about, is how we sort of would envisage things happening depending obviously on how COVID pans out. So the course aims then, we have a very strong service user and carer support. So we have a group that enable us and sort of just help us in all parts of the sort of design and delivery of the programme. And we feel very proud that that's not tokenistic at all. It's something that we really value as part of what we do here. So what we're wanting to achieve at the end of the 3 years is that you will come out as very accountable, reflective and self-critical practitioners. It's a really important thing as part of being a social worker that you're able to really think about why you do the things that you do. So you're able to reflect on your practice and be really accountable for the decisions that you make around that. So we want you to be able to demonstrate the ability to integrate subject knowledge alongside values and skills. And those are the 3 really basic tenets that are so vital to social work study. Yeah, you see you're gathering lots of knowledge about social work and the people that you're going to be working alongside. You're also going to be learning a lot about yourself and the values that you have as an individual. And then through doing the practice placements, you'll be really honing your skills so that you'll go into practice as a well-rounded social worker. The qualification is generic, which means that we don't just look at social work for adults or social work for children. We make sure that you have a really rounded experience so that when you qualify, you're able to then determine where it is that you want to sort of work, what field really interests you, and you'll be able to apply for a range of different opportunities within the sector. So we want to equip you with the knowledge, values and skills so that you're going to be able to promote and protect individual and collective well-being. And that's the essence of what social work's all about. It's supporting other people to make really important changes in their lives. It's also about promoting social justice, and sometimes people tend to forget that, but it's very much around thinking about not just what's happening for the individual, but why that might be happening and the sort of wider sort of social conscience around that. So all of these things, you'll be learning a lot about. So we've designed the course structure so that we don't throw you in at the deep end. I mean, there would be no use in that. It would just be a really awful experience for you and for us. So what we want to do is to sort of gradually build your skills and knowledge and values as you go through the 3 years. So we start off with a foundation year, where you're just going to be starting to really make sense of who you think you might be as a learner, really understanding a bit more about the sort of context of social work and what it's all about, and start to really get to grips with the sort of knowledge base of social work, because it's very varied. We sort of tend to be quite eclectic in our knowledge base. We take from sociology and psychology, lots of law and social policy, human development, so it's quite wide-ranging. Alongside your learning in that first year, you'll also be getting 30 days assessed readiness for practice learning. Again, we will have to see how that looks, But currently it means that you have an opportunity to work at the level of a skilled volunteer in an agency, just to sort of just to hone your skills around communication and assessment. So then in year 2, you start proper, really, in terms of your placement. You will then be working at the level of a social work student. So you'll be given some tasks to do in an agency that will just help you to really sort of develop who you are as a social work student. Alongside that, you'll be thinking about, so where does social work take place? What's happening here? Why do organisations work in the way that they do? What are the systems around that? What sort of environment is it that people are having to live in that I might be supporting as a social worker? Then in the 3rd year, you'll be really seeing yourself as a practitioner. You'll be taking on some quite complex work. You'll be engaging in a lot of different social work processes. So thinking about, how best you can support people through the assessment process, for example. And you'll have 100 days practice learning in that year. So as you can imagine, we don't really see much of you in stage 3 because you're actually sort of out in practice for a lot of that time. So a gradual development then of that professional persona over the 3 years. In terms of learning and development, these are the sorts of things that you'll be learning. So you'll be looking at communication and assessment skills, and then how to sort of use those to help to promote independence for people that you might be working with. Thinking about, how do you engage with other professionals? Because, social work is not something that happens in isolation. We work very closely with a range of other professionals. How does that look? How do we develop that? How can you support people in developing what's right for them in terms of rights and risks, but also looking at support and protection. So some very complex factors that are around how we can sort of manage the best way of supporting people without taking away from their human rights and dignity. And also thinking about promoting social justice. What is it that works in our society? What is it that perhaps we need to challenge? We need to think about doing in perhaps a different way. So alongside this learning and development, we have something that we think works really well, and it's something that's quite unusual in terms of teaching practice. We have something called study groups. So essentially when you come along, you get nominated to a group of about a dozen students, and you get to meet on a regular basis. In the first year, that's every week, and then it sort of gradually sort of lessens, but you'll be having regular contact with your peers, and you get to know those people very well over the course of the year. Alongside that study group, there'll be somebody like me to facilitate, and that's a way of just offering you tutorial support in a really sort of in a safe space where you can all sort of share ideas, look at what's working, look at what challenges you might be facing, and just thinking about how you're developing as professionals. And we believe very strongly that peer support is advantageous, not just when you're learning here, but when you are then in professional practice. So we really think that study groups emulate how it is to be in teams. And we've all been in social work teams in our past, and we can recognise the usefulness of having lots of practice around that before you're actually engaged in the work. We also have something called skills rehearsals. So in stage 1 in particular, you'll have opportunities to practice communication skills in a safe space with one another, rather than waiting until you're working with service users and carers to do that. So lots of different ways of learning and lots of different ways of experiencing what's going to be working best for you, so that you can sort of start to develop your own way of being as a professional. So we have a range of different modules, and here are some of them. So we explore what social work is all about, because lots of people tend to have a range of different ideas of what that might be. We'll look at values and ethics. Values are a significant part of what it is to be a social worker, and we'll consider what yours are, where they came from, how you're developing those over time, and we all continue always to develop our values. We'll think about methods and approaches of social work, and you'll have lots of opportunities to rehearse that here as well as when you're on your placements. We'll think about, what organisations are out there, what policy and law underpins the work that we do. Social work is a political activity. It's very much underpinned by legislation and policy, and you need to really understand that. So we'll think about, human development and well-being, how we understand the social world, and think about, risk and professional decision-making. Again, that is a significant part of what it is to be a social worker. A lot of the decisions that we make are very, very sort of risk-focused, really, and we have to sort of just be very conscious of what it is that we're doing and the impact that that's going to have on the people that we work with. We also have an opportunity for you to look at an extended essay at the end of the year, and that sort of is an opportunity for you to really think about research-informed practice. Everything that social work does is informed not just by legislation and policy, but also by a huge host of research that underpins what we do. And so you'll get lots of opportunities to think about how that looks too. So the practice learning then across the 3 years, like I said, it starts at that volunteer level and then it develops on until in the 3rd year you're taking on a significant level of work as a sort of almost ready social worker. And we have very supported placements, so they're all quality assured. And they all have supervisors in the placement that will sort of help you with your day-to-day work. We also have people who come in and observe your practice and give you feedback on that. And then all of the work that you do as part of your practice learning gets put into a portfolio that we look at the end of the year and assess. The other sorts of assessments that we have are really varied. So we have, we appreciate that not everybody enjoys writing essays, though we do have a number of essays that you'll be completing. So we also have other things. We have group work tasks where you might be making and presenting a poster, for example, around some potential discrimination that you might be experiencing as part of what's happening for you when you're in practice. So thinking about how people that you're working with might be oppressed and discriminated against and how that looks. We also have one exam, and that's an open book law exam. And we have a range of other sort of modes of assessment that we think, the more we can sort of just mix it up and give you lots of opportunities to have different ways of expressing what you're learning, we think that there's a significant amount of value to that. So you need to be aware that placements are based across the Southwest. So you could be placed anywhere in the Southwest. Obviously, we work with you to think about where's the most useful placement for you. So we look at what your learning needs are. We identify together with you and what it is that you need to learn and think about, do you have caring commitments? Do you have access to a car? A whole range of different things. And then we'll sort of work together to look at where's best for you to be placed. But do assume that there will be some travel over the course of the 3 years. We're very lucky in that we have a very strong link with a number of agencies, lots in the local authority settings that we have here in the Southwest, but also many in the third and independent sectors as well. So we're very fortunate that we have, a significant range of placement opportunities on offer for students. And we've never yet not been able to offer a student a placement, which we're really sort of proud of, actually. So your application then, if you're wanting to apply, and I really hope that you will, you have academic requirements that you need to achieve, a personal statement and 2 references. So these are the things that make up your application to us. I won't go into too much detail around those now, because if you want to know more information, you can either get in touch with me or in touch with the team that sort of deal with your application, okay? So there'll be a personal statement, and I think the important thing here is to think about how you demonstrate what it is that you sort of are able to do, and what it is that interests you about social work. It sounds obvious, but some people write very generic personal statements, and it's not clear whether or not they want to be a teacher or a midwife or a social worker. And we want to hear about, why social work is important for you. So think about related work experience, and that doesn't necessarily have to be in social care field. It could be, for example, I don't know, working in a pub, where you've had to really hone your communication skills and your skills around negotiation and managing people who might be presenting behaviour that's a little challenging on occasion. So, there are lots of different things that you can think about that are work related. It might be on a voluntary basis. It might be that you have lots of knowledge around how it is to support somebody because you've been a carer in some aspect of a neighbour or a family's life. So think broadly about what experience you bring. It could be that you yourself have used social care services, and that's appropriate to talk about as well. So you need to evidence your communication skills. And you can do that obviously in written form. So do be careful about how you sort of write your personal statement. And we want to know that you can empathise with others and have some awareness of your own values. So just do a little bit of thinking around, what is it that's important to you? What are your values? And maybe just do a little bit of research to sort of find out what you think that means for you. So we want you to be able to problem solve and just also to show a willingness to learn and study both independently and in groups. So have a think about how you can let us know, the importance of that to you. Let us know of any extracurricular or outside interests that you might have. And that's because it can be really helpful for us to have some idea of what's important for you in terms of your well-being. Social work is not an easy profession, as I'm sure you'd be aware, and it's really important that we know how best to look after ourselves as well as the people that we work with. So think about how you express yourself clearly and making sure that you provide those supportive references. So ideally, we select applicants through a shortlisting process and an interview day. Whether or not those interview days will happen in the same way, we're not clear at this point in time. So again, I won't go into too much detail around these. But we do try to sort of make sure that the interviews are an opportunity for you to ask us lots of questions as much as it is for us to sort of just gauge what's important for you and whether or not you're suitable for the programme. So do whatever interview form you might have, do think about what is it that you want us to support you with in terms of giving you information. All the offers are conditional. You need to have a DBS form completed. You also need to have obviously the qualifications that are required and health checks, just to ensure that you're well enough to work with service users and carers. Again, if you have any queries around any of those things, then do please get in touch with us and ask. So social work is a wonderful career. And for those of us who've been social workers, I think for the majority of us, one of the things that's most wonderful about it is that there's a huge variation of what social work looks like. So, you could be employed in statutory social work. So that's what people often first think of, so child protection or supporting adults, maybe with mental health issues. But we can also work in the voluntary or private or independent sectors, so perhaps working with people who are homeless or people who are refugees and asylum seekers. We work very closely in multidisciplinary teams, so perhaps we're in hospital social work, community-based work, working abroad. There are so many opportunities, and the students that have left us have gone on to do all sorts of wonderful things, both here and internationally. So if you are really interested, there's a few suggestions. If you've not already come across these, I'd suggest that you have a look at BASWA, so that's the British Association of Social Workers. They have a really useful website. Social Work England, who are our regulatory body, again, very worth you taking a look at those, particularly in relation to the thinking around, developing your values, perhaps. Community Care has an excellent online resource that I would suggest you look at. And then the other thing is just, read books that aren't necessarily academic at this point in time, because we'll have plenty of opportunities for you to do that once you join us. But think about, what sorts of problems and challenges people face in society. So have a look at books that are just going to just throw up ideas around that for you, and maybe challenge some of your thinking too. So look at newspapers. The Guardian on a Wednesday has a really useful section dedicated to social care issues, for example. But try to sort of look at documentaries, all sorts of things that are going to help you and familiarise yourself with the concept of how people are discriminated in society and what support people might require around that. Okay, so if you want to get in touch with us, please do. Currently, our admissions tutor is Margaret, and she'll be with us till the end of July, and then I'll be taking over as admissions tutor from the beginning of August. So it'd be really good to hear from you if you need any advice or support. Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. And I really hope that you'll consider coming along to Plymouth. It's a beautiful place, and I'm sure that you'll have a wonderful time. Okay, thank you very much. I'll just stop share and I'll say goodbye for now. And thank you for listening.